Chapter 14. There was one thing Lori had to do before the paper came out. Monday morning, she had to find Amy and explain to her about the story. She still hoped that as soon as Amy read it, she would see the wave for what it was and change her mind about it. Lori wanted to warn her in advance so she could get out of the wave in case there was trouble. She found Amy in the school library and gave her a copy of the editorial to read. As Amy read, her mouth began to open wider and wider. Finally, she looked up at Lori. "What are you going to do with it?" "I'm publishing it in the paper," Lori said. "But you can't say these things about the wave," Amy said. "And why not?" Lori asked. "They're true. Amy, the wave has become an obsession with everyone. No one is thinking for themselves anymore." "Oh, come on, Lori," Amy said. "You're just upset. You're letting your fight with David get to you." Lori shook her head. "Amy, I'm serious. The wave is hurting people. And everyone's going along with it like a flock of sheep. I can't believe that after reading this, you'll still be part of it. Don't you see what the wave is? It's like everybody forgetting who they are. It's like Night of the Living Dead or something. Why do you want to be part of it?" "Well, because it means that nobody is better than anyone else for once," Amy said. "Because ever since we became friends, all I've ever done is try to compete with you and keep up with you. But now I don't feel like I have to have a boyfriend on the football team like you. And if I don't want to, I don't have to get the same grades as you, Lori. For the first time in 3 years, I feel like I don't have to keep up with Lori Saunders. And people will still like me." Well, Lori felt chills run down her arms. I always, top of page 140. "I always knew you felt that way," she stammered. I always wanted to talk to you about it." "Don't you know that half the parents in this school say their kids, why can't you be like Lori Saunders?" Amy asked. "Come on, Lori, the only reason you're against the wave is because it means you are not a princess anymore." Lori was stunned. Even her best friend, someone as smart as Amy, was turning against her because of the wave. It made her angry. "Well, I'm publishing this," she said. Amy only looked up at her and said, "Don't, Lori." But Lori shook her head. "I already have," she said, "and I know what I have to do." Suddenly, it was as if she was a stranger. Amy looked at her watch. "I gotta go," she said, and walked away, leaving Lori standing alone in the library. Alone again. Copies of The Grapevine had never been scooped up faster than they were that day. The school was abuzz with the news. Very few kids had heard about the sophomore who was beaten up. And of course, no one had heard the story by the anonymous junior before. But as soon as those stories appeared in the paper, other stories began to circulate. Stories of threats and abuse directed at kids who for one reason or another had resisted the wave. There were other rumors going around too, that teachers and parents had been to Principal Owen's office all morning complaining, and that the school counselors had begun interviewing students. There was an air of unease in the halls and classroom. In the faculty lounge, Ben Ross put down his copy of The Grapevine and rubbed his temples with his fingers. Suddenly, he'd gotten a terrible headache. Something had gone wrong, and somewhere in his mind, Ross suspected that he was to blame for it. The roughing up of this boy was terrible, unbelievable. How could he justify an experiment that had such effects? He was also surprised to find himself disturbed by the football team's embarrassing defeat by Clarkstown. It seemed odd to him that although he didn't care the least about high school athletics, this defeat would bother him so. Was it Was it because of the wave? During the last week, he had begun to believe that if the football team fared well, it would be a strong argument for the success of the wave. But since when did he want the wave to succeed? Top of page 142. Success or failure of the wave was not the point of the experiment. He was supposed to be interested in what his students learned from the wave, not in the wave itself. Well, there was a medicine chest in the faculty lounge, stocked with just about every brand of aspirin and non-aspirin headache remedy that had ever been invented. A friend of his had once remarked that while doctors as a group suffered from the highest incidence of suicide, teachers had to have the highest incidence of headaches. Ben shook 3 tablets from a bottle and headed for the door to get some water. But just as he reached the faculty room door, Ben stopped. Outside in the hall, he could hear voices. Norm Schiller's and another male voice he didn't recognize. Someone must have stopped Norm just as he was going into the faculty lounge, and now he stood outside the door talking. Ben listened from inside. No, it wasn't worth a damn, Schiller was saying. Sure, it got them psyched up, made them think they could win, but on the field, they couldn't execute. All the waves in the world don't mean a thing next to a well-executed quarterback option. There's no substitute for learning the damn game. Ross really had these kids brainwashed, if you ask me, the unidentified man said. I don't know what the hell he thinks he's up to, but I don't like it. And none of the other teachers I've talked to do either. Where does he get the right? Don't ask me, Schiller said. The faculty room door began to open, and Ben quickly backed away, pushing through a door into the small faculty bathroom that adjoined the lounge. His heart was pounding rapidly, and his head hurt even more. He swallowed 3 aspirins and avoided looking at himself in the mirror. He was afraid of who he might see. A high school history teacher who had accidentally slipped into the role of a dictator. David Collins still couldn't understand it. It didn't make sense to him why everyone hadn't joined the wave in the first place. Then there never would have been these hassles. They all could have functioned as equals, as teammates. People were laughing and saying that the wave didn't help the football team at all on Saturday, but what did they expect? The wave wasn't a miracle drug. Top of page 144. The team had known about the wave for exactly 5 days before the game. What had changed was the team spirit and the team attitude. David stood outside on the school lawn with Robert Billings and a bunch of other kids from Mr. Ross's class looking at the grapevine. Lori's story made him feel a little sick. He hadn't heard anything about anyone threatening or hurting anyone, and for all he knew, she and her staff had made it all up. An unsigned letter and a story about a sophomore he'd never heard of. Okay, he was unhappy that Lori refused to be part of the wave, but why couldn't she and the other people like her just leave the wave alone? Why did they have to attack it? Robert, beside him, was getting really upset over Lori's story. These are all lies, he said angrily. She can't be allowed to say these things. It's not that important, David told him. Nobody cares what Lori's writing or what she has to say. Are you kidding? Robert said. Anyone who reads this is going to get the completely wrong idea about the wave. I told her not to publish it, Amy said. Hey, relax, David. There's no law that says people have to believe in what we're trying to do. But if we can keep making the wave work, they'll see. They'll see all the good things it can do. Yeah, but if we don't watch out, Eric said, these people are going to ruin it for the rest of us. Have you heard the rumors going around today? I heard that there are parents and teachers and all kinds of people in Principal Owen's office complaining. Can you believe that? At this rate, no one will get a chance to see what the wave can do. Lori Saunders is a threat, Robert said bluntly. She must be stopped. David didn't like the sinister tone in Robert's voice. Hey, wait, he began to protest, but Brian cut him off. Don't worry, Robert. David and I can take care of Lori, right, Dave? David suddenly felt Brian's hand on his shoulder, slowly guiding him away from the rest of the group. Robert was nodding in approval. Look, man, Brian whispered, if anyone can get Lori to stop, you can. Yeah, but I don't like Robert's attitude, David hissed. Top of page 146. He hissed back. It's like we must wipe out anyone who resists us. That's the exact opposite of how we should approach this. Dave, listen. Robert is, he's just a little over enthusiastic sometimes. But you have to admit, he has a point. If Lori keeps writing stuff like this, the wave won't have a chance. Just tell her to cool it, Dave. She'll listen to you. I don't know, Brian. Look, we'll wait for her after school tonight. Then you can go talk to her, okay? David nodded reluctantly. I guess. End of chapter 14.